Today, we're here to present to you on a paper that we wrote, Principles and Practice in Indigenous Engagement in Water Management. So hopefully we will not entertain you, we will give you some sound food for thought, and in particular, hopefully create a greater curiosity about how we can continue to amplify the voices of Indigenous people in Australia in water management and water security for our country. Because we believe, and hopefully you will see this today, we believe that when you get an Indigenous outcome, First Nation, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander outcome, you get shared benefits for the whole of the community, the whole of the country. And that's the way we approach our work. So I just want to say a huge thank you again to our collaborators in the international arena. Our relationships, and you'll see the relationship throughout this presentation, is so important. We know that we need you to help do the heavy lifting that you do, and also stay connected with us for us to achieve our wants, needs and aspirations, particularly in the water arena. So a huge marabou to all of you and for everybody else that's come along today, so thank you. As it is customary, I want to acknowledge the artwork. If I can get this working. Is it that way? Feral, but is he driving it for me? Next slide. I can't get this working. On the cutting edge of technology. Look out, if we get AI up, we'll just be saying g'day to ourselves. Look, just whilst we're waiting for our IT in the back office to help sort us out, you know, we're ready to go. Okay, ready to go? Beautiful. Got it. So I want to go back. I just want to acknowledge the artwork, which is from my cousin, Faye Clayton. Painting name's Faye Mosley. She was deposited at Cootamundra Girls' Home at the age of 3-year-old. And she uses her art not just for healing, but also for education and to inspire others to learn more about our connection to country, which is in our art, song, dance, in our stories that have been handed down transgenerationally. And this is the meaning, this is the walking on sacred ground, and this is the artwork's interpretation from Faye. As you can see, rivers, there's meeting places, there's birthing places, there is gender balanced, gender specific places for our men and women. And that just reinforces that our knowledge and our way of life, it is complex. But we think through our country and our obligations and our responsibility to care for country in a holistic manner. We don't silo our approaches. And hopefully we will have that positively reinforced from us for you today. An acknowledgement of country, well, both an acknowledgement and a welcome to country back home, are just modern day interpretations of an ancient custom and practice where one seeks and receives permission to move through lands beyond our traditional boundaries. And here we are, from our wonderful country called Australia, and our nation, the Gomroy, Kamilaroi, which is the proper way, as far as I'm concerned. It's K, and I want to emphasise that. So I want to acknowledge the people of Azerbaijan for hosting COP29. It's important for us, and that we, and the delegation of people, the wonderful people that have been here before me and last week, we will continue to walk softly on this country and respect it, and respect its people. That's just the way of life for us. It's a cultural appropriate thing to do. Connection to country is so important, and Brad's going to talk to you when Brad gets up as well. But I want to highlight how important it is for us. That image over there, the far right one, is my picture of my grandfather standing under the tree he was born under. And I've had the wonderful privilege of taking some colleagues to there university students, water utility CEOs, because that tree, it might look like a pepper tree to us in my family, it's our birthing tree. And the other image here is of me standing under that with the first ever Winningali Gunamagali classroom, listen, learn, understand from our sacred Mother Earth about our water, with Professor Moggridge and ourselves in 2019, where we took 14 PhDs and Master of Research students up to our country. And you know, again, it's so important. We also share Burba Lagoon as our songline, that of Guttia. And I might let Professor Moggridge talk a bit about that. But down below, the bit of wood that you see with the 4 totems on there, that bit of wood is from that tree. So we didn't cut it while it was live, we took a felled branch and we had that artwork done on there. It sits on a possum skin, tanned possum skin, but the Yutundali, the Goanna, our nation, Gangil, the Corella, my grandfather, Bunda, the kangaroo, my father, and I'm Biggie Billa, the little porcupine, the echidna. So not that I do things slow. So that's all about the connection to country for me, and again, Professor Moggridge will also talk about his as well. I want to acknowledge Mullion, the wedge-tailed eagle, a significant totem whose strength, wisdom, protection to watch over us today and watch over COP29, particularly our Australian family, our Australian delegation, and you know, watch over us while we're here and give us safe returns as a whole cohort. I want to highlight there's 2 meeting circles there. The first one is where we have women and men sitting together. The women has the symbol in our language, in our nation, is it has the digging stick next to it. So one of the things that Professor Moggridge and myself and many, many others as men are profoundly committed to is the restorative justice of our women's rightful place as decision makers in our community. We are profoundly committed to that. We don't walk it, we live it and breathe it. We are our mother's sons. And this circle here is where we all sit together, where we as collaborators, our champions, our allies, like the people that are in this room, that want to share the load, share the journey and assist us as we move forward in the water arena and many, many other arenas of our life. To realise our leadership responsibilities. You know, we just want to be very bold. We have leaders in the Indigenous arena. They are solid. You know, today we stand on the shoulders of giants of yesteryear. Charles Kumanjaya Perkins, etc., etc., etc. We could go on in the women. Jackie Huggins, Dr. June Oscar, Minister Burney, I could go on. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, it's okay to take your hands off the steering wheel and let us have a drive. I'm going to throw some analogies in there, a bit of humour. Some of you will get it, some of you won't, but, you know, if we're having fun while we're challenging one another to make the differences together, it's a more rewarding journey. And, you know, people appreciate and embrace the opportunities together. But I want to be bold in saying that nothing about us without us. In this day and age, we don't want to aspire. We have the leadership. We have it before us in our communities, across our communities, not just the men but our women. You know, we come from matrilineal. I come from a matrilineal society. So, you know, nothing about us without us. And when we're looking at research, there's another little cliche I want to throw in. If we're not leading the research, how does the research benefit us? How can we realise that potential to manage our cultural estates, the tapestry of cultural sites of significance, and the many resources across our countries, our nations? So I'm not here to sugarcoat it. That's what we want. That's what we're, and the other aspect about this when we go into the case study is that we know that as Indigenous people globally, we talk and live in mirrors. Our lifestyles, our journeys mirror one another, including the many trials and tribulations that we undertake. So I want to acknowledge the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trading, Australian Water Partnerships, the World Bank, and particularly the University of Canberra, Centre of Applied Water Science, who we brought a very, very strong team together. Professor Ross Thompson, Dr. Anne Paulina, Professor Moggridge, Bradley Moggridge, Associate Lecturer Michelle Hobbs, Jack Livingston, and myself together to write this paper. And we did 20 international case studies, and we'll walk you through that very shortly. But I want you to have a look at these two opening paragraphs in our paper. Global water systems are increasingly stressed by human demands, and the vast majority of the world's major river systems are now dominated by anthropogenic influences. In many cases, this has led to the river and lake ecosystems that are environmentally degraded and increasingly incapable of providing the ecosystem services we as humans rely on, particularly through a cultural and Indigenous cultural lens. These pressures have had two important consequences for us as Indigenous people in Australia. The first is increased demands of water and energy, heightening tensions around Indigenous land and water rights. The second is recognition that Indigenous knowledge has an significantly important role to play in providing models for good water governance, allocations and the restoration of habitats, native fish populations, our wetlands, and the key component of policy management and resilience. We still operate in a vacuum of opportunity. We are still operating from a deficit position as to how we can achieve our rights in the water arena. So this is the 20 international case studies that we undertook globally. It was desktop. We didn't travel to 20 different destinations. That would have been wonderful, but we didn't. So I just wanted to highlight the geographical spread of the case studies. The interconnected cultural values did not surprise us through the case studies. Healthy people, healthy country, healthy culture. They were three really key standout connectors for us throughout the entire journey of this case study. I want to now highlight, this is a river map done by Robert Zooks, who travels the world delivering, mapping countries with all their rivers, anabranches, etc. Now, why have I got this up? Time and time again we get questioned about, why do you talk about Mother Earth as a living, breathing entity? Well, hopefully this will give you an explanation from my lens. For us as human beings, we need all our vital organs, all our arteries, all our veins pumping to our hearts, lungs, liver, kidneys, for us to be vibrant and healthy. It's the same as country. I don't know if this is working. Does that come up? Okay. My grandfather told me that where I'm from, and I want to acknowledge other country people here, that the northern part of the Murray-Darling Basin is the lungs of the basin. In the Gamilaroi Nation, you have 11 rivers, even the headwaters of the Hunter. You've got the Great Artesian Basin, and you've got an international Ramsar sites at the Guida wetlands. Significance, and I want to show you the lung. Then I got to sit with Uncle Colin Walker on the Dungala, the Murray River, down at the Narras, down at what you call the choke, down at the Barmer Millawar. And Uncle Colin said, yes, and were the kidneys. So the thing is, at the end of the day, I hope that you can see that how we use modern day technology to tell our story and how it can be used to validate our connection, to validate our cultural responsibilities to care for our cultural estates and the resources for the long-term sustainability of our people and our country. Funnily enough, I had 3 terms on the CSIRO's Indigenous Advisory Council, and when I went to Gama, this was the on our stand, our stall, and that was we're Australia's first scientist. So we have transgressed from using traditional ecological knowledge to now using the term cultural science. Our way of life, we've existed on the driest inhabited continent on this planet since time immemorial. our way of life has been a cultural way of life. And it's always been about quality of life, longevity of life, and quality cultural way of life. So, and some history on how we interacted in that symbiotic manner with country, as opposed to the height of the millennial drought when water basically drained out our rivers, was taken. So I just wanted to highlight that. What I'd like to now to do is to ask Professor Bradley Moggridge if he would come up and take us through the next phase. We're going to be jumping in and out with one another, so just be patient with us. This is a shared story.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, this is a timeline. It probably should go back 65,000 years rather than 1967. So, yeah, it's really sort of some watery points in Australia's history that you can sort of see there. Significant points where we've had interventions or produced certain things. You know, the referendum in 67, you know, when, you know, not just before I was born, that generation was allowed to be counted as humans. Land rights movements, the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Rights Act, Murray, Lower Darling Rivers Indigenous Nations was created in 2000, and they prepared the Echuca Declaration, the Lingiari Foundation did the Water Rights Report. So there's some pretty significant milestones in that space. Australian Human Rights Commission, Murray-Darling Basin Cultural Flows Research was a significant point. First Peoples Water Summit, so we've got a couple of members in the House that were attendees there and part of that original group looking at national water objectives. That water summit in Adelaide had some very strong outputs, and I suppose we're still waiting for them to happen, which is quite sad. It's been slow, but we're getting there. Closing the gap is constantly a reminder of where we're at. National Water Initiative refresh that's going to happen hopefully soon, and we'll hopefully see some advancements in that. It was in 2004 it was created, and all states and territories agreed to it. And I suppose that was the first time in national water policy that we'd been mentioned as Indigenous people. Closing the gap again, and so we saw water and land become part of the closing the gap. And then State of the Environment report. I was lucky enough to be a lead co-author on the Inland Waters chapter. It wasn't a good story for that previous 5 years, and it's never going to be a good story into the future unless we do something. So those aspects, especially around the cultural information that I was looking for to assess from a national point of view, to look at the health and the state of the environment from a cultural point of view. So there's a lot of information and opportunities, and like our principles document is one of those. So I think they're there, we just don't want them sitting on shelves. So how to engage Indigenous people? How? It's not that hard, really. You just got to have a yarn, good cup of tea, to build trust over time, and you know they're quite basic. And like you know, we've got the snake there representing you know a model of engagement. You know, a bit of a conceptual framework there, you could say. No engagement, acknowledgement. That's what happens a lot. We get acknowledgement a lot. We get a welcome to country, and then sometimes there's a bit of engagement, and that's it. So I suppose that bit needs to change, and the engagement aspect is we're tired of engagement, and I'm going to say it. We want to get married, but I was in Vancouver last week, and I mentioned a question to some of the leaders over there, and we had Māori in the room as well. And I said, can we move from engagement to marriage? But the Māori are at a point that they want a divorce. So it's a little bit different in other aspects with regard to your relationship with your government of the day. But we obviously want to move to co-design, co-delivery, and then you get those co-benefits, and then you move towards co-presentation, co-authorship, and then there's the reciprocity of giving back. You know, a lot of the times Aboriginal people wonder, why should we engage? What's in it for us? And I suppose that's a lot of the times that research has been the best at that. You know, he's going to a community and asking questions that they want answered, and hopefully that community can answer it. Then that research will go away and get a PhD and whatever else, you know. So those sort of challenges are, you know, we're trying to move to that realm and, you know, flip the paradigm and start working with communities early, build up the trust between each other, have those cups of tea. I use the 3 T's, time to build trust over tea. And you can have 4 and 5, which are Tim Tams. But those opportunities are growing. And as Phil mentioned, if we're not leading the research, potentially it doesn't get right. So, you know, I've got a couple of projects that, you know, I'm lead of, and I'm working with communities, and now they're saying, we don't know how to do this. We don't know how to drive a project because we've always been told what we're researching. So I suppose it's flipping that paradigm. We've got to build their capacity in actually getting to them to a point where they're now leading projects. They're equal level with the research. So I suppose it's, you know, that bit's exciting. Just to introduce myself, traditional lands of all the peoples here at COP9. I'm Kamilaroi. That's an old photo there, top left. Old sepia one that sat on a mantelpiece of someone's property where a lot of our ancestors are and were back in the day. So assuming 1850s-ish. My nan's dad is the taller boy at the front with the hat and the overalls. And then behind him is my nan's grandparents, so we're very lucky to have that photo. And there's Nan in the middle there. We had her up until 2016 at a ripe old age of 97, so we just thought she'd be there forever. She just missed out on 6 generations of people alive from you know, descending from her and grandfather. There was 5 generations. We did a count. It was over 200 descendants just from her and Pop. So, and then obviously Kamilaroi country, and there's my 2 kids there, Kai and Mia. So they're at Booba Lagoon, as Phil talked about, a shared place. My son's now a big hairy boy. He's 20, so he's out and about. He's an Indigenous ranger, so, you know, he's living his best life. And Mia's in second last year of school. So I suppose it's awesome that they're here represented, and obviously those generations is where we've come from, the past, and they're the future. So this is sort of what I try and do in my work. You know, water is at the core of who we are, and Phil had that screenshot with the 3 healthy water is at the core. Without it, you die. So it's pretty important. And we're trying to reconnect with our traditional water knowledge and our methodologies on doing it our way rather than a Western way. And that way has to be determined by the community you're working with. So they will they should define the way you do business. You know, who you speak to, where you sit, what days you meet, all that sort of stuff is part of the methodology, is building, you know, and that early phase is building that trust. And, you know, how our old people did science, tell our stories our way. The reason I got into academia was I got tired of hearing non-Indigenous people tell our stories. So I suppose I'm in a very privileged position now to, you know, like Phil, you know, like some of our Aboriginal brothers and sisters here, we're very privileged that we're in a position now to tell our stories our way, not from a Western point of view. And we always got to make sure it's safe in that regard. So you can share, but you're also protecting that knowledge. So you've got to have a pretty strong research agreement as well. And then we get to the point, like I always struggle with this one, validate our science. We've sort of got to go through a Western system to validate old knowledge. So we were doing science way before science was a word, way before the Royal Society in London was even thought about. So our mob were doing science, testing, retesting, methodologies, results, replication, and survival. You know, so, and we're still here. We haven't survived policies these days. Oh, I'm trying to work 2 things, sorry. Can't do two things at once. That was that one, so... What I said just then, that's that slide. Sorry. Yeah, like I think it's important that, you know, we're in a position to lead projects. You know, we're chief investigators. There's not many Indigenous scientists in the space, so it's a lonely space, so we've got to build up the cohort. We've got to make science a bit more sexy for the next generation. I don't know how to do that when you're wearing, you know, safety goggles and a lab coat, but it's, you know, it might be a sexy lab coat, I don't know. But, you know, we've got to obviously build that opportunity for them, you know, to get them engaged in this space. And we try and, well, I try and do that myself. So these are just some of the sites that can and I have come across in regards to that are water dependent in this regard. So creation sites, we all know that, cultural heroes, the dreaming tracks, the song lines. They all connect to water. They're all, you know, water places in a dry landscape are significant places. Language connects culture, place with water. So if you have language and a waterhole dries up, that language disappears with that as well. So I suppose it's you know, language is very important, and that's us reconnecting. You know, we have around 300 languages in Australia before settlement, and you know, some are extinct and some are threatened and some are being revived. So I suppose we're in a exciting space that my mum's generation was completely moved from language, flogged if you spoke it. So you were tortured, brutalised if you were around the old people, and they were allowed to speak it sometimes, but the young ones weren't allowed. So they pretty much removed culture and language from you. Our resource sites, foods and medicines, artefacts and tools. So men's and women's business. So Phil talked definitely, you know, strong connection, especially on my side of it, we're same tree. So I grew a beard so we could tell the difference. Same tree, different branches. And, you know, men's and women's business is real, you know, and me being a hydrogeologist by training, many groundwater sites on my country are women's sites. So sometimes I just can't go, I can't investigate, I can't look at them, I can't be there. So I can't know the stories. So, you know, it is a challenge, but I suppose it's, you know, I have to respect that. You know, I might want to go and see these natural springs bubbling away, bringing up beautiful water, but they are women's sites, and there's no deal. Ceremonial sites, when the big mobs got together, they're always around water. Our burial sites are definitely close to waterways, so especially, you know, in soft riverine sand, we're not going to dig in hard clay or rock and bury our old people. They're going to be in soft river sand, and potentially, you know, as we're managing water these days, we're moving water at high velocities, high volumes to get from A to B from a dam, and that will undercut the banks, that'll erode banks, and then obviously some of our ancestors will be exposed, and that's, yeah, they're sad places, but I suppose they're important places. Just some more surface and groundwater specific values. So there is definite knowledge between groundwater and surface water. Our teaching sites are water related, so it's your turn to receive knowledge, and you're going for a walk with an elder, and they're talking about all the plants and all that sort of stuff, and you're going to the river to talk about fish and to go catch a fish potentially. But in a modern day, you go to the river and the river's dry because no one's ordered the water, or there's no water in the river because it's been over-extracted. So, you know, those sort of aspects need to be protected. Our massacre sites were definitely always around water. Another sad place, but we've got to protect them as well. Our totemic species, our cultural keystone species. So, you know, Phil mentioned Malian, the eagle. Its Latin name is Aquila audax. So that'll be my name if I ever go into witness protection. So don't tell anyone. I just love that name, Aquila audax. It's a very cool name. Cultural economy is important. physical, I talked about some of those sites before. Our seasonal indicators will tell us the health of country. And also those indicators and those species will tell us the health of country. You know, we have indicators that tell us water quality, when drought's coming, when rains are coming, you know, and then they also potentially link to our sky stories as well. So there's connections between the earth and the sky. This is my simple model for Aboriginal water. This is how easy it is for us to try and navigate. That's how hard it is to navigate. So we've got to know all this to try and get a bit of water in our wetland. You know, so we're up against it. We're up against the system, we're up against policy, we're up against legislation. There's no funding, all that sort of stuff. You know, I think I did this in 2011, I think it was. So still very much relevant today, and I use it purely for impact. So there'll be a quiz on that later. I'll hand over to Phil.
He's not finished yet. I just want to acknowledge, how you going, Katie? Ollie, how you going? Brad, as a Kamilaroi scientist, having one of our own, we work in this arena every day. We challenge the frameworks, the system, we challenge the science. So in February 2022, I completed, after leading a major research project for the Victorian government, and it was around traditional owner benefits for cultural water, so developing a cultural water framework. When I was the senior Aboriginal consultant at Alluvium Consulting with with our national economics team as well. I want to acknowledge the Gunai, Kurnai, Wurundjeri, Wadawurrung, and the Boonwurrung, and the Kulin nations and the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Organisation of the Woiwurrung as well. So this is the three dimensions of traditional owner values in water from the Victorian nations and again, the only difference is the bottom one is self-sovereignty and self-determination. To be the self-decision makers, to have leadership in our hands. Healthy country, healthy mob. They go hand in hand. We exist in harmony and in pain with our cultural estates. And when country's hurting, so are we. And there's been many social geography research, social geographers that have done that research to value that can validate that. We have never ceded our sovereignty. But when people in the water arena talk about a triple bottom line, we talk about a quadruple bottom line. And as you can see again, in relation to, this is small compared to Brad's water horrendogram, if I may be able to call it that. But as you can see, everything is interconnected. You can't have an economic value without the social and cultural and environmental outcomes. And again, I want to re-emphasise that when you get a cultural outcome, you get a shared benefit for the whole of community, country, the system. So I just wanted to highlight that was the foundation that came. Now this research was led by the mob, not by us. We resourced them and we went out on their country. We went up to the top of the catchments with the Wadawurrung, looked at their propagation and how important that was, that water gets out of the Ballon water storage system, down to connect with, and that's thinking in the way we think in the new systems thinking ideology. Well, we do think in systems, they're cultural systems. We think spatially, we think temporally. We think about the mob upstream, we think about the primary responsibility where we are, but we also think about that cultural obligation to get water to the mob downstream. And it creates this connectivity and, allows us to do the heavy lifting, share the responsibility, share the load, share the journey. So, healthy mob, again, when you look at, the physical health benefits, the mental health benefits, and the spiritual health benefits. These are not our words. These are words from the traditional owners of each of those nations that we sat with on their country. We didn't do this in a classroom. We took ourselves out of our safe environment and we went to where they wanted to meet and talk, where that was a safe environment for them, where we could have the necessary courageous conversations. So again, everything again, like our lifestyles, like our responsibilities, everything is interconnected. So if you look at it, Ownership and management of water by traditional owners contributes to healthy mob. On ground, caring for country activities, ability to make decisions, allow us to use the water and manage country. Know that country is being looked after. Increase physical health activities associated with on-ground management, enhanced mental health outcomes. Like I said, there's a whole range of research that's been done that validates this. And reduce the need to access healthcare systems, interactions with police, ambulance. Our kids are more proactively attending school, improve labour productivity. You've got a ready-made workforce out there that know country. And they're sitting idle. The challenge is for us is to mobilise that knowledge and mobilise the people. And as a result, you get a more cohesive community. So when we start talking about healthy country, these are not dissimilar to the others. Again, the spiritual benefits of health, connection to country, that symbiotic relationship and the responsibility that we have. Improved understanding of country. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about two-way knowledge exchanges, two-eyed seeing, so that's pretty important. But when you've got healthy country, it's a whole of community, a whole of catchment. Outcome together. Again, similar to the preceding one, but at the end you've got improved use and non-use values from an environmental assets and agriculture, tourism and amenities, and improved social cohesion. When we are involved in making the decisions based on that knowledge and our responsibilities that have been handed down transgenerationally, that's what we want. We want you to allow us to do this. At the moment, we're still in the engagement stage, and I'm with Brad. Let's put a ring on it. Sovereignty and self-determination. Now, this may sound a little bit harsh, but we've been fighting for our rights. One of the greatest things that, if you are measuring the outcome by engagement, you win hands down. But from our other side of the ledger, if you want to measure our success, it's from what we get to do with one another, collaborating as nations, as people on country, to get the desired outcomes. Now, when we do this from a whole of community perspective. If you come to our classroom, and some people in the audience have been up to undertake Brad and I's classroom, where we don't just work with Indigenous youth, we work with all youth. We are inclusive, we are innovative as to how we do that, and we're patient. Because with youth nowadays, we need to take them away from their IT and introduce them to country. So again, this is just another one. Very quickly, I want to get into planning for the future. Our nation, the Yutundali, the Goanna, we're always climbing, always looking to the stars. We always want to aspire to bigger and better things. So don't be like the dinner one, the emu, and to go things at half-paced, at flat out, I should say, at fast pace. You could hit a speed bump and you could be in a destination that couldn't be any further from where you wanted to be. Instead of being in Mungandai, you're in Narrabri. Some of you don't know where those are. But they're a long way apart. Like our tool sites at Terry Hi, leave a mark. And I'm going to be a bit greedy. I do things slow. I do a lot of deep thinking. So that's the footprints of Biggie Billa, the Echidna, on the Guida River near my home. So planning for the future. I want to highlight that, water security. This is Walhalla Mission on the Liverpool Plains. Karuna, Walhalla Mission. Beautiful 4-bedroom brick houses in the background. The water quality has corroded the water infrastructure inside those homes. And if you have a look, they're all women. All them old women got to get in their car, come down to these water source panels that have been donated by Yusuf, formerly known as Cat Stevens, and his International Peace Train Foundation. One tap to collect their 3 litres of water every day to have a decent cup of tea, to have a decent drink of water. This is in our country, Kamilaroi country. And this image is down at Walliga Lake, between Narooma and Bermagui, where Paddy Mills brought home some NBA players and they donated those water source panels to the Walliga Lake community. Same story, those old women got to come around to that one tap to get their 3 litres allocation, to have a decent cup of tea. In this country called Australia, why are we having Aboriginal communities particularly our women, going through the trials and tribulations of our health, and all we want is water that is fit for purpose, quality of life, longevity of life, and a quality cultural way of life. Sorry, I'm getting a bit wild up, maybe because I've been asleep for 40, I haven't been asleep for 48 hours. So when it comes to engagement, we've been the most engaged people on this planet, recognised as the oldest living inhabitants on this planet. Our knowledge, it's there. So it's got to be meaningful. What is your community driver? Okay? What is in it for you? And more importantly, what is in it for us? We are a people of generosity of spirit. We keep coming back to the table. We keep coming back and giving our knowledge. We keep guiding the policy makers. And what's the reward from us? We get engaged. We're over it. I'm here to tell you we're over it. The time, calm and dame, we need to seize this time and allow us to be the leaders that we are. Not that you think who we are, that we are. We do this every day of our lives. Everything we do evolves around our cultural values. You know, people in communities. Sorry, I'm trying to be like a old crow looking down the neck of a bottle for an ant, looking at what I've written. Partnerships. We've been in partnerships for 236 years. We don't want to go solo, but we want to lead. We'll take you on the journey. We will always provide a culturally safe place for us to have courageous conversations. Respectful conversations. We've been doing that for as long. We know that we've been doing it, and we'll continue to do it, but you've got to understand, we're getting tired. What are we leaving our next generation, the platform for them to jump onto? I don't want to leave it as an engagement platform. We should all aspire to leave them a leadership platform so they can spring forward in any direction on whatever portfolio they need to do. Reciprocity, the 3 R's. Relationships you'll get, the respect, we always give it to you. What do you give back? Reciprocity, what's in it for us? I want to quickly just talk about two-eyed seeing. I'm being clever, man doing two things at once. Two-eyed seeing, Galambany, Reed et al. 2020. We'll teach you through our eye, and you teach us through your eye. We don't understand the Westminster system of governance, legislation, acts of parliament, policies, but we know our culture, our cultural science. Validating that is that we've increased in population. There's a message inside there. You know, I'm just mindful, I want to get Brad back up here, but I just want to go through. Two-eyed seeing is how our world is. Overall knowledge and objectives. Two-eyed seeing our language, our methodologies, our key concepts and actions. Just another image about, you know, you're looking at through, you know, our science has been observational. But you know what, when we know on the south coast in Yuin country, when that wattle's blooming, the salmon are running. You go to other parts of this wonderful country of ours called Australia, and when the mullets, when there's another plant, the mullet's running. They do the mullet runs. Sadly, in the inland rivers, our native fish populations are down to less than 10% since first contact. We need to play a key role in restoring those populations because they are key totemic species. So I just wanted to, you know, you can look it up, Reed et al. 2020, great paper. You know, I'm on the board of Reconciliation Australia, so I'll always champion us walking and talking together. You know, the growth, you need to resource our growth, not your growth. Your growth, we give you our knowledge. And you take that knowledge and we don't see what you do with it. I'm sorry, I'm getting really passionate and forthright, but I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to challenge you and create a curiosity on what the world looks like with us leading our lifestyles. The safe, empowering space, empowering. Meaningful relationships. At the end of the day, we want to lead our projects. So I just want to, Phil, you there? I just want to share this with you. Yama it's water security. Yama protecting the source. Gay, stay gay. my gun. Water means everything to me. And when I think about the illegal take of water, you're taking away my cultural way of life. If you take this, you take away our spirit, you take away our artery, our life bloodline. For purpose, water is about life for us. Water is central to how we interact with our cultural landscapes. It is so important that people realise that we have this symbiotic relationship. It's not just about the land, it's about Gali and where the land meets Gali. And the Guida is our artery. This is where we used to camp. My name's Phil Duncan, traditional owner, Terryaya lands of the Gomeroi Nation. We've just come through one of the worst droughts in our country's history. The aftermath, water being in good supply, we can't just take. We need to take this opportunity and say, okay, how can we manage this now? How can we be better together to sustain our arteries, our native fish populations, our native vegetation, our Indigenous food security for the whole community? We will be judged by the next generation on the state of the environment we live in, both culturally and environmentally. And that's not just an Indigenous or an Aboriginal perspective. This is me. I am the river and the river is me. Yarn Guida. And lastly, an old saying from our old people, don't let the sun set without the energy and the effort. Hold yourselves accountable, because we will, but be brave and courageous and come and let us take you on our journey. We've been on your journey for 236 years. I want to say how honoured I am to share the stage with our Kamilaroi scientist, and yes, we just so happen to be family. What I get to learn from this man beside me is amazing. What I get to learn from a lot of people is amazing, particularly our women. I will always be forever grateful for what you do for me, for our family, for our people of this country called Australia. You're an amazing scientist, and I just hope that we can grab others to follow in your footsteps. We don't have a word for goodbye, because goodbye is definitive at the gravesite, and that's Yalu, but we say Yane, which is we'll go. But before I say that, do you want to say a few words, please?
I was thinking about the two-eyed seeing. Maybe I'm the entertainer, but I was just sort of thinking maybe we need a green eye, because we've got green eyes, because I don't want you looking through the brown eye. Sorry. But the other thing is, also the quadruple bottom line is important for us. There's also a fifth element, the quinary bottom line, and that's spirit. You know, we need to think about our spirits in regard to how we're engaged. So I think, there's definitely there's a lot in that presentation for everyone to take home, and I suppose it's what you do tomorrow is whether you wake up a good ancestor. That's the challenge.
Thank you so much for this opportunity for me and Brad to do this together. It matters the world to me, and for once I got through saying that without tears. For those that know me, we are our mother's sons, but we'll go, but we're now open for questions, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Hope you've been challenged. Yes, please. If not, you can come up and have a yarn over a coffee, but any questions? I think that covers it. Thank you, people, and those that have joined us. Thank you.